Hi there, and welcome again to WPMR. It's been a while since I've done a video blog, but actually after my recent trip the other day, I'm tired and I just don't feel like writing, so I thought I would do a video. I got back Monday evening. I had driven up on Friday to Cherry Hill, stayed with Jim and Carolyn, and when I got there, I met little Colin, who Carolyn was taking care of during the day while his mama was teaching school. And so we, shortly after I arrived, went to Uno's for pizza. The pizza was terrible, but it was just good to be with Kate, and Pete, and Colin, and of course Carolyn and Jim. Then I went back to Carolyn and Jim's and went to bed kind of early with the help of Ativan. The next day we went to the church in Langhorne where Pat's funeral mass was held and the celebration, and it was wonderful. In fact, the entire weekend with family was special. Not that the death should be a happy event, but it brings together so many wonderful memories and people that you haven't seen in a long time, and I had a wonderful time. Sad at many points, but also uplifting. Pat would have loved the celebration. Her nephew, who is a former priest, did one of the readings. My brother Jim and her nephew Tim did one of the readings. In that parish, no one but the priest is allowed to do the eulogy. Here in Virginia Beach, they do let family members say a few words if they want, but not in that church. They must have had some people give some really wild stories. Anyhow, after that, we went to a restaurant, Gabriella's, and had a wonderful luncheon, again with loads of people. And my brother Frank was there. He was at the church sitting up by the coffin. There was a coffin, and Pat, or casket perhaps you want me to say, Pat was to be cremated, but Frank wanted the body in the church. So after the Mass, it was hard for the children to watch the hearse take the casket away because there would be no burial. Frank did go to the luncheon, and we all talked and chatted, and there was beer and wine flowing. And after that, we all went to Kitty's house. And at that time, Kitty put Frank down for a nap. He was wiped out. There were people coming up talking to him, and we're not sure he even recognized all the people, but it's something he wanted to do. I stayed there at Kitty's with all the nieces and nephews, and oh my God, there was a lot of beer drinking there. My Irish family really knows how to put it away, and we had a great time. Carolyn and Jim had gone home earlier, and so I rode home with Rose and John. And I got to meet some nieces and nephews I had never met before. Nephew Mart, I got to meet his children. And Terry was, of course, in from Texas. And I think I briefly had met her daughter, Rowan, who was an infant, perhaps, Declan. Just so many kids. And then, actually, Kitty and Terry and Meg and all their children are grown, except Terry's. Terry's are still little. So then, after that, I went home and again talked with Carol and Jim and then fell asleep. The next day was Sunday. And we just kind of chilled. Carolyn, of course, made me scrapple. And she knows I love Habersets. That's the only kind I like. And it was so good. And she had gotten bagels. And it was just a nice, leisurely Sunday. In the afternoon, I drove over to see Tom and Laurie and meet there. Of course, their children were there. And then their daughter Helen's 2 grandchildren. And that was a good visit. It was brief because I didn't want to be driving home in the dark. Next day, I drove back. And it was a good drive, a little bit confusing or scary when I went over the Delaware Memorial Bridge and don't remember it saying 95. I kept looking for the sign for 13, and eventually I found it, and I was okay. It took about little over 6 hours each way. I had taken an audio book and listened to it. It's one of my favorite authors, Joyce Carol Oates, and she is some unbelievable, a prolific writer. The book that I took of hers was I'll See You There. It's a very interesting story, not a whole lot of plot, but a lot of character development. And so it was 10 hours of audio, and that was perfect. I didn't listen to anything else except the book on tape. I got home and then, yes, started washing my clothes and chilled out, and that was it. This has been a difficult time for all my nieces and nephews because, of course, people could say, well, Pat was 81. Yes, I know that. However, we had no idea she was so ill. No one did. Her husband, my brother Frank, has been a hospice patient for over a year, and he's still ambulatory. We've expected him to die, but we had no idea. She went in for, I thought was irritable bowel. She had a colonoscopy. They found that she had cancer, and they did surgery, which would have been a non-event because it was early stage 2. However, before the surgery, they did a CAT scan, and they picked up something on her pancreas. I was still hopeful that it would be benign, like the thing on my adrenal gland, which is benign and been there for 6 years. I told Pat, I'm sure it'll be benign. Well, hers was not. And they offered her radiation and chemo, and she was ready to give it a try, and she did. She was already weakened, though, because she had not been able to eat a whole lot before the surgery. And they wanted to do the chemo right away, so they did. They gave her a round of chemo. They wanted to do 4 of them and see how it would work. And she was so terribly sick afterward. It was just awful. And she called her children in and said to bring Frank to the hospital, that she did not want to do any further treatment. It was too much. And they had the whole next week to be with her and be with her through the dying process. And it was a wonderful experience for all of them. Now, my brother Frank said he no longer wants to go back to that house. It's too hard for him. Nobody knew that he would be there alone. Even though one of the kids has gone to stay with him each night, they can't keep doing that. So he's going to live at Kitty's. She has gotten a hospital bed. And by the way, Kitty is an RN, and she is absolutely a phenomenal person. She's just taken care of her mother, got her into the nursing home where she herself is the director of nursing. And now she has her father at home, who's also a patient. So it isn't like she's going to come home from work and relax and just chat with her father, who's 86 this coming July. She's going to have to take care of her father. I mean, he does have hospice coming in, but he's got dementia, and he's in and out of being lucid, and it's very difficult. Anyhow, that's what they want to do. And just now, as I'm speaking, the older children, Rose and John, are at the house taking some furniture over to Kitty's. They're taking his favorite chair. Kitty has a hospital bed for him. And they're going to see how that goes. I hope that Kitty doesn't overextend herself. I'm sure the other siblings will do what they can do. Anyhow, that kind of summarizes what has happened. I miss Pat. It was just totally unprepared. I know people die in automobile crashes and suddenly every day. And I don't know which death is easier. None of them are easy. If it's a long, protracted illness, that's difficult. If it's a sudden death, it's difficult. It's all difficult. I sat in my brother Jim's house, which is a very serene place in Cherry Hill and in a beautiful setting with trees all around it. I said to him, you know, what it is, it's an ending. It's an ending to something that we knew. We knew for so long. We have those memories of when the kids were little and they'd bring them down to Ventnor and we'd go to the beach and so many, many things. Pat and Frank had 7 children. Pat was the youngest herself of 7 children. And now this is the end. It's over. I don't know if I'll be able to talk to my brother Frank because he just isn't. We have to take it day by day. So I'm back here now, and yesterday I went to my ENT doc to find out about his impression with this vertigo that I've been having. The last time I went for one of the treatments that the audiologist does, I had a full-blown vertigo attack, which I was actually glad because now they could see it. We weren't sure heretofore if it was vertigo, and that's why my primary ordered an MRI to see if something was going on in my brain. That report came back essentially negative with maybe some minor abnormalities. I wish she didn't use that word, but my doctor said she can't tell me they'll never give me any problem, but probably they won't. They're probably just due to aging or artifacts. Things, some of those tests, PET scans, MRIs are so sensitive. So we're essentially saying the MRI was negative. Well, yesterday when I went to see the ENT, he said yes to go along with that. He told me that I should come back to him anytime I have an episode because it could recur, But I told him since the last one for 2 weeks I have had no episodes, and he said that's classic, the fact that I had that full spinning attack in his office. And so there's really nothing we can do about it. I'll just live with it, and hopefully it won't come back. But if it does, I'll go right back to his office, and they'll do those little maneuvers to my head, and I should be fine. He did tell me to work with my balance, because there's somewhat of a connection here with balance and with the aging process. I thought, wow, it's the first time I really had acknowledged the fact that I'm aging. And I admitted to him that I do notice myself little changes in balance. So I do balance things. I pull my leg and my quads up and pull my heel up to the back of my thigh, and I do that, and I stand on one foot. So I think I'm okay. Rich was fine while I was gone. He was very, very lonely. I know that he was. And maybe absence makes the heart grow fonder. I missed him terribly, and we're just so grateful for everything that we have, and we take each day as we can. Right now he's gone to the Boone Clinic to pick up some prescriptions, and I have some chicken in the crock pot, following, I think, Rosemary's recipe with fresh lemon. And first I put some spices all over the chicken, and it should be pretty good. We'll have crinkle fries with that. And I know some of you don't want to hear when I tell you what I've been eating, and I understand. I'm looking outside, the beautiful bird. There's a cardinal out there. So I'm going to stop now, and I just wanted to catch up here so that I don't have to really talk about this anymore. Have a great day. I'm glad to be back, and just tell your loved ones you love them. There's nothing more that's needed. Okay, we'll try and end this now. If I